teammate. So anytime you lose a guy like that, it's hard to replace. But some young guys will get some opportunities, and we'll kind of see how we do.
And with some of those young guys, obviously you have Luke and among them, but also picking up KJ Osborne. How does he fit? What do you know about him, and how could he fit here?
Yeah, I've liked him. Eval'd him when I was in Arizona, and liked what I saw. I've heard tremendous things about the type of person he is. So he's a guy who can play inside, outside, and give you a lot. And so we got to see kind of how he fits in with us and try to get him up to speed. But from what I've seen on tape, he's definitely a guy that we can use.
Hey, Kliff. When you're an offensive coordinator looking at a defense that has cornerbacks that stay on one side of the field, how does that change for you versus if they have a guy that travels, follows Terry in this case, et cetera? Yeah,
I think it's always week to week kind of game plan. If there's certain things you think you can do matchup-wise, attack one or the other, that's really the biggest thing you can glean from it. Does one guy like to tackle? Does one guy not as interested in tackling? Maybe setting things up that way, but not a huge deal. I think philosophically, kind of like we want to play no huddle, so most of the time the X is on the left and the Z is on the right. It's just how does it fit your scheme and you getting lined up.
And sort of an off-topic question. Obviously, Bill Belichick going to North Carolina. You're one of the few people who's done both. So what do you kind of think of the idea of a guy at his status going to college in this day and age?
I will have to see him on the sideline to believe that's happening. We'll see how the NFL job search goes and all that. I will have to see him on the sideline coaching in Chapel Hill to believe that's happening.
The landscape has changed a ton even since you were there because of NIL. Could you imagine having to deal with that these days?
I got to just sit around and observe last year, and no, I don't see my man going in any home visits or doing like the cocktail hour after the visits. I just don't. Maybe he'll set it up like an NFL deal, but I have to see that to believe it.
What did you learn about your offense during the bye week?
Yeah, we did a bunch of self-scout. I think, looking at the lull we had, we wanted to go back and be like, hey, what did we do good? What did we do bad? What can we do better moving forward? And, consistently being able to practice and have guys healthy, I think, is a big part of it. And to be able to show the improvement we had against Tennessee when we had multiple weeks of good practices, I think that helped our mentality and what we needed to do moving forward. And coming back off the bye, being healthy, being fresh, we really pushed it this week and are going to continue to push it. And I think that's the biggest thing is like when we practice at a high level, we play it at a high level, and we've got to become accustomed to doing that, and that's what the great teams do.
What does Luke need to do, I guess, it seems like he's had moments, but the production hasn't always been there. What's preventing him from getting there, and what can he do to do that? Yeah,
I mean, he's a talented young man. We've asked him to play inside and outside because he can handle it, and that's a lot on a young player. And then we've just had, the addition of Noah took some of those reps away, and then other guys have stepped up, OZ and Diami, and it's a loaded receiver room that with a bunch of guys that can do a bunch. I know they don't get the notoriety that some people talk about, but the way they play, the way they perform, it's been a good group for us. And I think that's the biggest thing is just other guys have made plays, and he's done everything we could have asked for him. But other guys have made plays, and it's just a crowded room right now.
Crowded room that you add Osborne, maybe Crowder's coming back. What's kind of the run-up or the timeline to getting Osborne on the field this week ASAP?
Yeah, we'll try and do as much as we can with him this week and see if he'll be game ready. And then if not, we'll cram all through, the road trip and get him as much information as he can and try to get him going. But from all accounts, everybody we've talked to, he's very conscientious, understands football, great with X's and O's. So usually about a week, and they're ready to have some sort of role. And we want to make sure when he goes in, he's confident and understands he can play fast. So we won't overload it, but he'll definitely have a role soon.
And then when you lose players like Eckler and Brown in a short period of time, and that's a lot of offense, do you look to replace that similarly, or do you have to kind of change things up and go more 2-3 tight ends, or just make the looks different?
Yeah, that's the kind of million-dollar question. You got to see where does that come from, that extra offense. Do we need to have different sets and run the ball more, or can we take more shots now? Is that something that's going to help us, get those yards back and maximize the guys who will be playing? And that's what we got to figure out over this next couple game stretch is where does that come from? But it's hard to replace two guys like that. The protection they had and just the type of teammates and the effort they played with. But young guys get the opportunity, and we'll kind of see where it fits. All right, thank y'all. Appreciate it.